Thanks to those joining me live and to those who will be joining me on archive. You are listening to D-Style Boxing. Feel free to leave comments in the chat. If you're watching archive, feel free to listen to list or your comments in the comment section. Make sure you thumbs up the video. Something about the year 2017. It just feels like a retirement year. Several fighters have announced their retirements from the sport of boxing, making their departure. Most recent name, Sugar Shane Mosley, definite Hall of Famer. So far, and I forgot one, then forgive me, but whether it's Juan Manuel Marquez, Timothy Bradley, Vladimir Klitschko, and the latest Sugar Shane Mosley, well, it's a hell of a Hall of Fame class right there. But towards the end of Mosley's career, toward the end of his run, he kind of became an afterthought in boxing circles. But it's easy, especially if you just started watching boxing a couple of years ago. It's easy to dismiss Shane Mosley. You know, it's easy to forget that this was actually a hell of a champion. You know, Shane Mosley was his punching power was always dangerous. At lightweight, I mean, he was knocking dudes' heads off their shoulders. He was knocking dudes, and they were falling face first. Okay, they were falling on their backs, heads bouncing off the canvas. This guy was destroying guys. One of the most dominant lightweight champions of all time. Now, I'll admit, when I was growing up, I wasn't really following Shane Mosley that much. Okay, but when Shane Mosley was reigning, and when he was, the man basically at 135, it was evident, it was clear. You know, Floyd Mayweather was dominating at 130 pounds at that time, and I do remember, man, thinking, wow, if those two ever fight, I mean, that's a hell of a fight. You know, and for whatever reason, the fight never materialized when those guys were in those weights. Mosley ended up moving up to 147 pounds, eventually challenging Oscar De La Hoya for the welterweight championship of the world. And that was their first fight. Mosley had an unbelievable performance. De La Hoya looked in great shape for that fight. I mean, it's not like he faced a unfocused or anything like that. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's the greatest version of a De La Hoya that anybody ever defeated. You know, De La Hoya looked in incredible shape. That was the same De La Hoya that gave Trinidad a boxing lesson until he decided to, run away the last 4 rounds. I still think he won that match, but in this one, it was close and it was competitive, but it was clear that Shane Mosley won. It was clear that he won. There was some rounds where Mosley took them far and away. He had the best rounds in that fight. De La Hoya, like I said, I grew up watching De La Hoya, and I remember thinking in the first 2 rounds of that fight, like, yeah, De La Hoya's got this. De La Hoya looked good, but Shane Mosley showed me something that night. That's probably the best performance of Shane Mosley's career. That first victory against Oscar De La Hoya. That's probably my favorite Mosley fight. Out of all his performances and all his fights, that's the most exciting one, in my opinion. I mean, just looking at the speed, it's not like De La Hoya was slow, because he wasn't. But, I mean, Mosley's speed and his explosiveness, the power carried to 147, he was a force to be reckoned with. Now, his run didn't last long. because he ended up running into a guy called Vernon Forrest, and we all know who that is. Shane Mosley never ducked a challenge. He took on Forrest head on. He took on Forrest head on, man. He went at him again right after losing to him. You know, nowadays, guys will lose to somebody and then they'll move on. They'll try to wiggle their way around this guy. No, not Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley wanted him back in the ring right away. I think Mosley did better the second time, but Vernon Forrest still beat him. It was just a bad matchup for him. Mosley ended up moving up to 154 pounds to challenge De La Hoya again, who had just finished defeating Fernando Vargas, what many call the most satisfying victory of his career. When Shane Mosley fought De La Hoya the second time, it was still a good fight. It was a great fight. It was competitive, but to me this time it was clear that Oscar De La Hoya won, but Shane Mosley still got the decision, controversial decision. And then Mosley ran into Winky Wright. And first it was Forrest, and then Winky Wright. Two guys that nobody in those divisions wanted to fight. Nobody wanted to fight these guys, and Mosley lost the first time. Guess what he did? Predictably, he went after Winky Wright again. He did not win the rematch either. That was just 4 blemishes just out of 2 guys that he fought are on Shane Mosley's record. I think anybody could have lost to those 2 guys. I felt like Mosley to a certain degree because I felt like personally he should have lost the De La Hoya fight. He lost to Winky Wright twice in a row, right? And I thought to myself, this is it. I mean, Mosley's at the end of the road, right? I thought Mosley was done. I mean, later in his career, he lost a very close decision to Cotto. He ended up moving back down, right? He ended up losing a really close decision to Miguel Cotto. He didn't particularly look all that impressive in the first few rounds against Cotto. I think he gave up too many rounds. But, I mean, the one thing about Mosley, he always stayed strong, man, and he pressed Cotto. He kept pressing him. And Cotto felt that pressure. Second half of the fight was really going Mosley's way. A lot of people debate that fight till this day, right, about who won. I felt like in the end, when it was all said and done, that Sugar Shane Mosley won the fight. That Miguel Cotto won the fight. But if you want to argue that Mosley won, I'm not going to argue with you, right? And for whatever reason, people kind of deemed Mosley being done at that point, and nobody really, after losing twice to Wright, I forgot about the Vargas fights. He defeated Vargas twice, right? The first fight, Vargas had that terrible swelling, and the rematch, he just knocked him out. He also defeated a prime Luis Collazo, which looking back was actually a very good win for Shane Mosley, right? That victory with Luis Collazo is very underrated. He had that terrible match with Sergio Mora all those years ago. That was just terrible. That was right after the Mayweather fight. He knocked out Ricardo Mayorga after the Cotto loss. He never really got credit for that Mayorga win, because Mayorga was thought to be over the hill and all that. But, I mean, him knocking out Mayorga really, tells me a lot. And also, I think he knocked him out in the last round, if I recall. But the big win for him was the Antonio Margarito fight. When he knocked out Antonio Margarito. Now, between the Mayorga and the Antonio Margarito fight, a lot of people forget, Shane Mosley was supposed to fight Zab Judah. That fight got canceled. I forgot who got hurt or what. I really wanted to see that fight. I feel like Mosley would have knocked out Zab Judah, to be honest with you. Also, Shane Mosley was set to fight Andre Berto, right? Shane Mosley against Andre Berto. And that was when Berto was still undefeated. And I honestly feel like Mosley would have knocked out Andre Berto. Again, those are 2 fights that we mixed out on. Berto and Mosley even had a sit-down on HBO with Max Kellerman talking about the fight. A lot of people forget about those 2 fights. It should have happened and never did. The Antonio Margarito fight. And this was when before we knew about the plaster Paris, before we knew about the loaded gloves. All we knew was that Antonio Margarito had just finished destroying Miguel Cotto. He just finished destroying the guy. And this was in Los Angeles, the same spot where he fought De La Hoya the first time. Now, the Mosley first De La Hoya fight with Mosley De La Hoya, the first one, is still my favorite Mosley fight. But to me, like the fight I really enjoy watching is this one. The Antonio Margarito fight. I mean, the drama of this fight was just amazing. You know, first you had, first of all, he was a big underdog in that fight. Like nobody was, you know, the pundits were saying that Mosley was shot, Mosley was done. Margarito was on fire. Margarito just finished destroying Miguel Cotto. Cotto couldn't even go the distance against him. Margarito's on this, Margarito's that. Mosley came out and landed a big, vicious body shot on Margarito in the first round that took the air out of him, and then proceeded to batter Margarito around for however long that fight went. I forgot how long that fight went. Like, what was it, 8, 9 rounds? He just proceeded to batter that guy around all over that ring and just ended up stopping him. You know, beating him. I felt he could beat Margarito by boxing him, you know, and I felt he could hurt Margarito, but I didn't think he was going to batter him around like that and eventually just finish the guy. I mean, that was very impressive. And then that was Mosley's last hurrah, you know. There was, of course, the Mayweather fight. That was a big deal when that fight happened. Here on YouTube, I mean, there was 3 fan bases, right? There was a Mayweather fan base, the Pacquiao fan base, and the Mosley fan base, right? Those 3 were the guys that everybody wanted to see. We got to see the Mayweather-Mosley fight a little sooner. If we look at this here, that was in 2010, man. Holy shit. That's over 7 years ago that Mosley fought Mayweather. I mean, that's hard to believe. Like, you know what I mean? That's hard to believe. I was right here talking about the damn fight on YouTube. First round was pretty competitive between the two, but it was a full-out round. In the second round, Shane Mosley found an opening on Mayweather, right? He found an opening. He landed some big shots. He rocked Mayweather. And then after rocking him, he rocked him again. And I remember Mayweather hanging on to Mosley when he was hurt. Mosley almost had Mayweather out of there. Or that's at least the closest we've ever seen Mayweather get put out of there, right? I mean, he almost did it. I mean, he came close. I think Mosley needed like 1 or 2 more big shots to put Mayweather down. But he couldn't quite do it. Now, even if he would have put Mayweather down, I mean, that would have been a huge moment, but Mayweather having 10 seconds to get up, recover, could he have done that? Yes. You know what I mean? It would still have, you know, we still got to see if Mayweather would recover or not, but he was close to putting him down. You know, it was very, very close. And who knows, man, another one like that might have knocked him out. So after that, Mayweather, first of all, closed the second round, pressing forward. Okay, he won like the last minute of that round, like, you know, and then he proceeded to win the rest of the fight. You know, he proceeded to just outbox and outclass Mosley for the remainder of the fight, and Mosley was never able to find an opening like that again in the fight. Then there was the Pacquiao fight. I talked about the Mora fight, but the Pacquiao fight, it wasn't a good performance by Mosley. Like, you know, he looked flat. He just didn't look good in that fight. You know, that's the worst at that point I've ever seen Mosley. You know, and it was just downhill from there. He looked flat against Alvarez. Canelo battered him around a little bit. He put up a fight in some of the rounds, but overall, just got battered around a little bit. You know, and then it was just downhill from there for Shane Mosley. Like, you know what I mean? It's after that, there's really nothing Hall of Fame worthy after that. You know, nothing. nothing Hall of Fame worthy. So, but everything before that, you know, it's worth mentioning. I'll always be a big fan of Sugar Shane Mosley. I will. And I think he retired 5, 6, maybe 7 years way too late. In my opinion, after he lost to Mayweather, he should have had one last hurrah. You know, knock somebody out and then call it a day. I mean, that would have been a perfect finish to his career. He stuck around a little too long. Gave us that horrible fight with Sergio Mora. Looked flat against Canelo and Pacquiao. Just two guys just put their name on their resume. Mosley's name on the resume, and he became a resume name after that, you know. So he retired a little too late. Now all we got to do is get Roy Jones, man. And now we just got to get Roy Jones to retire. Somebody get Roy Jones to retire, please. All right. Anyway, I see the chat, guys, and I agree, man. In water, he used to be a lot more smooth. He was just younger. He was in his prime, you know. Yeah, he started getting a jittery. Yeah, there you go. You know, he had to adapt a little bit. You know, he wasn't a young man anymore. And, you know, what are you going to do? All right. Those are my thoughts. Congrats to Sugar Shane Mosley, man, on a career.